Hola, ¿qué tal? Gracias, Franco, por la invitación a FINNOSUMMIT Hour. Un placer estar aquí con todos ustedes el día de hoy. Buenos días, México, Colombia, Argentina, Perú, Chile y otros países de Latinoamérica. Buenas tardes, España. Bienvenidos todos a esta sesión sobre Embedded Finance o finanzas embebidas, uno de los temas más apasionantes en el mundo de las finanzas en estos momentos. Y bueno, antes de empezar me gustaría compartir unas reflexiones. Si miramos para atrás unos 20 o 30 años, podemos ver claramente dos tsunamis tecnológicos que han transformado una industria tras otra. La primera ola en llegar fue la ola de Internet a mediados de los 90, principios del 2000, y que ha puesto patas arriba a industrias como los medios, el retail, entretenimiento, viajes, entre muchas otras. La segunda ola fue claramente el móvil, o los móviles inteligentes, que llegó 10 años más tarde, sobre el 2010. Y a esta ola yo le tengo un especial cariño porque fue el inicio de mi carrera profesional precisamente desarrollando algoritmos y software para las primeras estaciones bases y móviles 3G. En aquella época yo trabajaba en Ericsson en Suecia y bueno, recuerdo cómo esta tecnología se consideraba como algo que iba a transformar el mundo con su wireless internet y sus location-based services. Como así ha sido, ¿no? 20 años más tarde, en 2020, ya es innegable, ¿no? Que los móviles inteligentes han cambiado nuestras vidas y también muchas industrias. Y si bien es cierto, ¿no?, que estas infraestructuras tecnológicas han cambiado el mundo, muchas veces sobreestimamos la velocidad con la que el cambio va a llegar, ¿no? Las personas que trabajan con las tecnologías y los visionarios piensan que en 2, 3, 4 años va a pasar. Sin embargo, la experiencia nos dice bueno, que estamos hablando más entre 5 o 10 años. Pero la pregunta que nos trae aquí hoy, ¿no?, es ¿cuál es la siguiente ola tecnológica que transformará el mundo, ¿no? Y bueno, hay algunos que piensan que las finanzas embebidas y las plataformas digitales es esa tercera ola. Yo estoy convencido de que estamos ante una oportunidad increíble, ¿no?, y que va a afectar las bases de la competencia de muchas industrias, no solamente de servicios financieros. Estamos posiblemente ante la tercera ola de disrupción que cambiarán los servicios financieros y todas las industrias que puedan embeber esta tecnología en sus ofertas. Y para hablar de esta tercera ola hemos invitado a Simon Torrance, uno de los grandes expertos a nivel global de plataformas digitales y de una de sus implementaciones que es Embedded Finance. Y dado que nuestra conversación en inglés, pues bueno, voy ahora a cambiar a inglés. Simon is Senior Advisor at Global Innovation Group Rainmaking, a group to which FINNOVISTA belongs, a member of the executive group accelerating the digital transformation of the World Economic Forum. Simon is also the author of the book Fight Back, which is a book which is very insightful about digital platforms and what incumbents can do about it. But before we start, let me explain the structure of the session today. First, we're going to give Simon 15 minutes to give us an overview of what embedded finance is and why it is relevant. After that, I will have a conversation with Simon about 20 minutes about the implications and what to do about it. And then we will close with 5 minutes with questions from the public. You will have the opportunity with the Spark app to share your questions. I think you can see the QR code now on the screen, also the URL, which is finnovista.sparkup.live. Also, we will be tweeting about our conversation under the hashtag FSHour, and please do follow us on Twitter on the handle @FinnoSummit. Simon, welcome. The stage is all yours.
Thank you very much, Fermín. So I'm going to share some slides to start with to stimulate our discussion. And just let me know if you can see those okay. Does it come up on your screen okay? Yeah?
Yep.
Good. Okay. Well, thank you very much for inviting me today, Fermín. As you said, I'm going to speak in English. I shall try and speak clearly and slowly and explain what this topic of embedded finance is all about. I think, to sum up, it's about new types of digital business models. And as you know, the people on this call know, being specialists in this area, most companies tend to spend most of their time trying to improve their existing business model and digitize it. But most of the innovation happens in other places. which tend to be more platform-based business models. And they, if they are executed effectively, can be very, very powerful. And in my work with the World Economic Forum, I've identified 4 main types of platform business models, which are proving so successful today. And I'll briefly introduce them to you now. The starting point is often what we might call new types of digital solutions, doing much better using digital technologies what has been done before. And a lot of the first generation of fintech companies were examples of that, being able to get bank accounts more easily via mobile phones, for example. But now intelligent digital solutions are using artificial intelligence and other technologies to do even more exciting things. And you mentioned at the beginning some examples of Latin American fintech businesses, which I've put here. But there's some incredible innovation going on around the world, trying to deliver financial services more effectively. Now, developer platforms is becoming the new battleground. And those of you who are from the technology world, you may well know Twilio, which is a developer platform that helps embed communications into interactions between businesses and consumers. And we're starting to see a huge growth of developer platforms emerging in financial services as well. And not only startup businesses like Railsbank, but also some of the incumbent banks like Sabadell in Mexico and BBVA, who are offering their capabilities to developers to embed in their services. Now, online marketplaces is another type of digital business model, and you'll know some of the ones I've listed here. In insurance, we're starting to see more of this, an example being Policy Genius. And the most powerful digital business model is when you orchestrate a whole ecosystem of activities even beyond your core business. And Ping An from China is a wonderful example of that. So the question is, where does embedded finance fits in? And to my view, it's about enabling more and more of these digital platform business models, and indeed improving the digitization of existing businesses. So let's try and define what we mean by embedded finance. This is my definition, and I would love to get your feedback on this and how we can develop this. But I've tried to define it like this. It's about abstracting financial services functionality into technology so that you can enable any product or service provider or developer to integrate innovative financial services into their own customer propositions and experiences. And there tend to be 2 ways of doing this today. One where it's a visible add-on to a proposition that already exists. For example, extended warranties on products that you might buy from the internet, or indeed insurance being offered at the same time as buying a flight or a travel service. Or it could be an invisible native component of a service. The consumer doesn't see it. The service provider has just bundled it in to their core proposition. But the key thing about embedded finance is it needs to be, or to be successful, personalized, helping to create personalized solutions for users and relevant to the context in which the financial service needs to be consumed. And ultimately, it's about providing better customer experiences for every business. It has to be about very easy integration and, importantly, leveraging more real-time data from multiple sources and enabling new growth. And on the right-hand side here, I've shown a few examples that you're probably aware of. For example, Uber, whereby payments are just embedded in the service. And increasingly, Uber offering bank accounts to drivers. Digital wallets being offered by companies like Starbucks, or insurance being connected to devices based on the behavior that you undertake. Or indeed investments being embedded into your e-commerce activity by Yuebao in Alibaba's ecosystem. And if you're a user of WeChat in China, there's all kinds of financial services that you can access through their ecosystem. But what's most exciting, whether you're either a VC, a private equity company, a startup, entrepreneur, tech company, or indeed an incumbent financial service institution, if you look at the uptake of embedded finance so far and project it forward, you get to some very, very interesting numbers. And on the right-hand side here is some analysis I've done showing the potential value creation of organizations that enable embedded finance in 10 years' time, and how that compares to the total value of financial institutions today, or indeed software companies today. And what's happening is that new types of organizations are leveraging financial technology to create new types of propositions for new customer groups. And the projection is that these businesses that enable this, whether they're businesses that exist today like Square or Stripe or some of the other startup companies, or indeed new companies that don't even exist today, the projection is that this could be very, very exciting into the future. And the question for all of us is, where do we play in this market and how do we win? Well, I'm hoping that that figure you see on the right-hand side there is enough to excite you that there's something interesting here that we need to look at. Now, what does this mean for merchants of different types? Well, I'm going to share with you a number of examples here. For software businesses, people who are enabling other businesses through software, projections suggest that by adding, for example, payments to their proposition, they could increase their total addressable market, or indeed their average revenue per user, by 2 to 5 times. If you're a retailer of products, and particularly a small retailer, often the profits on selling the product, in this case a bike, are very, very slim and small indeed. But if you can add insurance really easily to your proposition, in many cases you can increase your net profits by 50%. And indeed, if you're a manufacturer of products, if you can embed at point of sale the ability for people to get a loan to buy the product or pay in installments, or indeed add insurance so they can be more comfortable about whether the product breaks down later on, then my analysis shows that you can increase order values by 20% and indeed increase conversion by, in many cases, 50%. So if you're a fintech or you're a financial institution, by enabling these types of businesses to embed different types of financial services, you're helping them to create new commercial value, and you're creating a new market for your capabilities. And the point is, in the definition that I gave before, this is about seamless integration using APIs. It's not about those long, cumbersome processes that we go through now to try and set up these capabilities. And indeed, there are so many applications that we've just scratched the surface. And I love this example from Africa, which is about providing electricity to people who have no electricity today. And a company called Zola makes solar panels. And solar panels are very expensive to buy for people who don't have large incomes. So what they did, they embedded loans and payment capability through the mobile phone to enable people who have no electricity today to suddenly be able to afford and use solar panels, so that they are now able to light up their house and power their equipment. And over the last 10 years, there are now 400 million people who are now using this capability, who in the past didn't have that possibility. So we've just scratched the surface of what is possible when we can embed financial services into products that deliver real value to people. And there's a lot of reason why now is this trend is emerging very fast. And COVID is clearly demonstrating how poorly served many people are today in terms of insurance for healthcare, in terms of being able to get credit when they need it, when times get bad. And we know that technology and digitization is accelerating across every sector and is accelerating the demand for new solutions. And we also know that there's a lot of investment money floating around, so-called dry powder, looking for new things to invest in. So all these things mean that embedded finance becomes even more important, particularly as the boundaries between sectors are blurring, so that the possibility to create new solutions that combine different aspects of different vertical sectors are now becoming possible. And platform business models are dominating in every sector. So what does this mean for banks and insurance companies? Well, technology and digitization is changing the nature of the capabilities that are able to be exploited by entrepreneurs and others. And the old world of a bank providing all the services itself are changing. And all these different elements you can see in the banking stack here can now be offered by other people. Payments, for example, or compliance services, or different types of banking products are now being able to be offered by other people, not just the bank. And it's the same in insurance as well. Underwriting capabilities, claims management, new products, and so on are now being able to be offered by fintechs. And this is creating, I guess, many, many new solutions. It's enabling many new players to enter the market. There's new infrastructure that is being built, and this is creating new battlegrounds between banks, between startups and insurtechs, between big technology companies, and those who are controlling the end user interface. So, as you know, most people spend much more time on things like WhatsApp or Facebook, or increasingly services like Rappi, than they do in the banking or the insurance company's app. And so we have a battle for the attention of users. And we're now starting to see new developer platforms and marketplaces aggregate the capabilities of banking and insurance companies and making them available to non-financial services, platforms and apps. And the question is, if you work for a bank or an insurance company, is the danger that we might be relegated to just providing people access to our license or offering rather commodity capabilities? Are other people going to be grabbing the more valuable origination and distribution capabilities that we had control of in the past? And blockchain is emerging, of course, which is creating new digital assets that, again, are being made available through different channels. So what we're seeing now is many different players involved in embedded finance with different needs. And in this map here, you can see how I've made a contrast between incumbent businesses, that's either traditional enterprises and traditional banks and insurance companies, and then the digital native companies. So that's either startup businesses, fintechs, who are now very powerful on the right-hand side, and digital businesses from outside of financial services, who are, as we know, extremely powerful. And these organizations all have different needs. On the top left, enterprises now, they know they need to digitize faster, and they also need new revenue streams and new growth. And if you're a retailer under pressure for margins, or you're a telecoms company with the same problem, is there the opportunity to embed financial services to take advantage of your large customer base and generate new revenue from doing so? If you're a bank or an insurance company, you need new channels to market. You want more customers to use your products, and you're looking for new growth. And are the old ways of trying to create partnerships with existing enterprises, are they effective enough as our whole sectors digitize? Now, for the digital natives, they don't want to create long, complex RFP processes to look at how they could embed financial services into their products. They want APIs that they can test quickly. They want access to new sources of data so they can create new solutions for their customers. And so for traditional companies, whether they're banks or they're traditional enterprises, they need to provide the same type of API-led platforms that developers who are creating digital services need to take advantage of to create more exciting, intelligent digital solutions. So just finally, I would say for us all, that those are, if you like, commercial benefits or opportunities for commercial organizations. But embedded finance has the potential to help us all as individuals, as citizens, and as society. And particularly if you think about financial inclusion, helping people to save better, helping people to get loans that are cost effective, helping people who may only live on $10 a day to get healthcare insurance and other types of insurances, and helping the world to achieve its sustainable development goals. So I believe that financial technology, it's accelerating so fast, it has the potential to be the world's new innovation platform. Just as mobile and the cloud has been today, this new type of innovation platform, financial technology, can enable embedded finance to be embedded in all kinds of activities that we take part in throughout our lives. So thank you very much. I hope this has been a useful stimulus for our discussion today.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you for sharing those insights, that vision about the opportunity. Well, it seems to me that embedded finance is trying to solve the problem that banks have been trying to solve with a generic approach for decades and centuries. But now with embedded finance, brands and non-financial companies could solve that financial need at the right moments, right? Within the context and with a lot of data, right? Is that correct? Is my interpretation correct here?
Yes, exactly. So, often I want to be able to pay for something. I want maybe insurance or I want a loan when I need it. And increasingly, as an individual, I'm accessing those services online, either through the mobile phone or through the web. And I would prefer the financial service to be available there and then. If I buy something, I don't really want to call up the insurance company and arrange some insurance. I don't really want to call up the bank and arrange a loan. It would be much more convenient for me if that was embedded in that experience exactly when I need it. And I think that's the key opportunity, and particularly for merchants and retailers to be able to embed that. As I said, I showed those examples that show the commercial benefits for them to either attract, retain, or add more value to what they sell to their customers.
You mentioned that some brands could be expanding their revenue base or the total addressable market by 2 to 5, right? Seems like a huge opportunity to let go for many non-financial companies. Could you expand a bit more on this?
Yeah, exactly. So if you are a B2B software company, for example, and you serve a vertical market like let's call it the restaurant sector, and you provide operational software to help restaurants run better. Now, currently, the restaurant will have to speak to someone else about managing payments, online payments or digital payments. Now, if you're the software company providing the operational software, why can't you, or you're in a very good position to also offer payment capabilities to the restaurant? And now it's possible to do. And if you do that, I gave that example, the addressable market that you have is much bigger because payment volumes are quite significant compared to buying the operational software from that you're providing. So for B2B software companies, SaaS-based software companies, this is a very significant opportunity.
Yeah, actually, you've mentioned a number which is mind-blowing, like $7.2 trillion globally, right? Twice the value of the 30 largest financial institutions. Who's going to capture this value? Who's best positioned to do it?
Well, at the moment, I say tech companies, technology companies, because they know about APIs, they know about platform business models, they know about creating ecosystems around themselves. So if you look at the top 10 financial institutions in the world 10 years ago, they were all banks. They're all big banks. If you look at the most valuable financial institutions today, half of them are not banks. The biggest one is Visa. The second is MasterCard. PayPal is the fourth. Ping An is a company that completely transformed itself. And if Ant Group does its IPO, it'll be in the top 3. Square and Stripe and other companies. And those are companies that are now becoming the biggest financial institutions in terms of value rather than the banks. So my current feeling is it's those type of digital native organizations that will win in this market unless the financial institutions do a dramatic change. And I show the example of Ping An because it's a good example of what you can do if you're committed to this. Ping An was a Chinese insurer 30 years ago, but it looked at what Alibaba and Tencent and others were doing 5-10 years ago, and it said, we want to operate like that. We want to create a digital business model like that. And the leader said, we are no longer an insurance company, we're a tech company that happens to have financial services licenses. And once he said that changed the whole culture of the organization. And they created a strategy and executed it really well. And that has catapulted them to be the 5th most valuable financial institution in the world. So it is possible for incumbents to compete, but they need to think dramatically differently outside of their normal way of thinking and invest heavily, reallocate capital to the types of platform business models that will be successful in enabling embedded finance.
Yeah, so clearly it's a threat, right, to the incumbents. But if the incumbents get it right, do you have an estimation of the increase in the percentage of revenue or return of equity that you think banks could achieve if they effectively deploy and execute an embedded finance strategy?
It's a very good question. In fact, I've spoke to a CEO of a Mexican bank, I won't say who, recently, and he is looking to invest heavily in this area. And he said that he believed that in 3 or 4 years' time, half of his return on equity will come from what he called bank as a service. I would call it embedded finance propositions. So what that means is he's increasing his total return on equity by 50% if he executes effectively, going from a very difficult business model, which is the banking business model today, but adding on top of that the digital business model. Now, another example is from the Far East. Another big bank in Singapore I spoke to recently said that it's making a big play in this area as well. And it felt that its new, again, it called it bank as a service platform, could be as valuable as the whole core bank in 5 years' time. So these are very meaningful opportunities if the bank or the insurance company can be committed to this.
Yeah, we're running out of time. One last question from my side. What action would you recommend to a bank or an insurance to tackle this opportunity? Right.
Yeah, well, I think there are 3 things to do. The first thing is to really understand the opportunity in detail at the very top of the company. So work out where to play in this market and what assets you can leverage to win. That's one thing. The second thing is critical, is not try to execute this from within the core business, because the antibodies will kill any new type of business model that competes with the normal ways of working. So you need a separate organization to drive this forward. And that's what BBVA has done with Open Platform. It's been what other companies are doing, Marcus, Goldman Sachs Marcus. And thirdly, you need to execute in collaboration with digital entrepreneurs. So the skills to create these types of platforms don't necessarily reside in the corporation. You need to find tried and tested entrepreneurs that you can create new ventures with and nurture them within a separate organization over here. So those are the three things: fully understand the opportunity and take the time to do so, create a separate organization, collaborate with entrepreneurs who know how to drive this forward.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you. I would like now to open up the questions from the public. We have more than 800 people registered, so maybe we have some good questions for Simon. You could send your questions through SparkUp in the QR code that has been projected on the screen, or the URL finnovista.sparkup.live. So I think we have in here a few questions. The first one is, do you think that banks could become commoditized in the market of embedded finance?
Well, absolutely. If you remember that diagram I showed of the stack, the industry stack, the danger is that the banks just become license providers. You know, they rent out their license to innovative fintechs or other players, and most of those other parts of the stack, as I said, can now be provided by digital companies and fintechs. So that is the real danger. Yeah.
Okay. One last question: will Apple, Amazon, Google, and Facebook transform the market industry with embedded finance?
I think so, because that's where people spend so much of their time and on these platforms, and you know, the platforms that you have in Latin America as well. So these companies are never going to be banks. They don't want to be license holders, but again, they can embed financial services into their platforms and ecosystems. Again, potentially commoditizing the banks, unless the banks can provide much more of the stack to those companies, and then there's a great opportunity to collaborate, certainly.
Thank you, Simon, for today. Thanks so much. It has been a real pleasure. Thanks for being with us.
My great pleasure. Thanks, Fermín.
Por la participación.